Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the channel. And I want to give a quick shout out to a channel and subscriber, Aphrodite Rose Starfire, who made the connection between Olaf and Osiris. Now, today's show will be some final thoughts on the Frozen movie decodes. And then we're going to look at the split brain. Now, the myth of Osiris states that Osiris was basically murdered by his brother and rival, by Seth. And Seth basically tore him. Oh, it's Set, actually. Isn't that interesting? They use Seth, the son of Noah, who carried Jesus' seed, right? And they say that Set tore his corpse into 14 pieces and then scattered them across Egypt. And that the winged goddess Isis, which was Osiris' consort, she found 13 of the 14 pieces. She replaced his wingerdinger with a gold one and then buried them. Now, of course, we know that gold is measured in carats, which brings us back to Olaf with the carrot nose that he keeps losing, just like Osiris lost his wingerdinger. Now, as you can see here, Olaf is made of 14 pieces, just like Osiris. And Osiris was born on Christmas, as you can see here. He shares the same birthday as Apollo. So the snowman born in Christmas is Olaf, Osiris. Now, we had compared Olaf to Drump as well. And when you spell Olaf backwards, it spells fallow, which means basically barren. Uncultivated land, lying fallow or barren. Of course, that's Drump's son's name. So, what's up with this frozen aspect to the film Frozen? Well, sub-zero temperatures preserve DNA. And that's what I believe the Osiris myth was all about. This putting back together of Osiris was all about DNA preservation. Now, as you know, frozen temperatures also preserve stickers. We all know what a sticker is. But back to this Osiris thing, because this is pretty intriguing. The concept of reanimation, of building DNA back into something. Now, they've talked a lot about this. Have they been able to do it yet? I don't believe so, but I think that they're just waiting to make the announcement in terms of being able to recreate like a woolly mammoth, for instance, using the DNA. All they really need is a womb, right? And they can build this DNA back. So I believe this is what this was all about, this Osiris myth, building back the DNA. And maybe the wingerdinger, the golden wingerdinger, is all really about his inability to procreate after being cloned, right? Now let me check in with you guys and we'll continue on with the show today. So, while we're talking about things falling into pieces, I found something very bizarre. We all remember this scene from I, Pet Goat 2. This is the scene here. And beneath the chalkboard, we see to the left of this were actually snowflakes. I didn't show them in this screenshot here, but to the left of this are snowflakes. And then there's this formula right here, which most likely means F as a vector in positive or negative. What is a vector? It's like a field. Now, a lot of things measure vectors. You can measure diseases in vectors, which is where it started, where they try to go back and find the origin of a particular disease. Vectors can be measured in millimeter waves as well. They come out in a vector. Anything that propagates a field or a range or a delta. We'll talk more about that as the show goes on this morning. But look at this. What else do we have here? To the right of the formula, we have this split brain. And next to it, a dragon crouching. Now, iPad Goat 2 has been out since 2012. We have looked at this before, and we talked about the vector. For the life of me, I cannot find that video. I've been doing a lot of moving around and positioning the channels here on YouTube just to make sure we can stick around. A lot of the stuff is backed up on Odyssey, but some of it is on hard drives sitting right next to me. And so I've gone through, and for some reason, some of those files did not copy over, but we covered F as a vector, because that's what this arrow is above the letter F. It's a vector. So we know that Fahrenheit is also temperature. So what is this really describing here? It's describing something stored at sub-zero temperatures that is a vector or a source of something spreading. And I can't believe that we didn't drill this down to this specific long before this. We got close, but I don't think we ever associated it with a disease vector. But here it was, hiding in plain sight the whole time. Now we're going to talk about how that links into the split brain and the crouching dragon in a minute. So what is this brain thing? Well, your brain is connected. Both sides of the hemisphere of your brain are connected by something called a corpus callosum. Now, the corpus callosum is weakened. In other words, the connection between the right and left hemispheres of your brain are weakened by all of these things mentioned in this study here. Including this. Now, I'm not saying it's this, in other words, the current, but it is noted here that the connection between the right and left sides of your brain are weakened by these different disease states. And we'll get into what that means in a minute here. But this is called the inflammatory pathology. And it shows all the other pathologies here too. Infectious, you have all kinds of ways your corpus callosum is weakened. There's a toxic pathology going on, hemorrhagic, okay, ischemic, all these different ways your corpus callosum can be affected. Let's read about the corpus callosum, then we'll go back down to the sticker and how that can affect the corpus callosum. This is crazy. Abstract. The corpus callosum is the largest white matter structure in the brain, consisting of 200 to 250 million contralateral axonal projections in the major commissural pathway connecting the hemispheres of the human brain. The pathology of the corpus callosum includes a wide variety of entities that arise from different causes, such as congenital, inflammatory, tumoral, degenerative, infectious, metabolic, traumatic, vascular, and toxic agents. The corpus callosum, or a very specific part of it, can be affected selectively. Numerous pathologies of the corpus callosum are encountered during CT and MRI. The aim of this study is to facilitate a better understanding and thus the treatment of the pathological entities of the corpus callosum. Watch this as they categorize these different causes of weakening of the corpus callosum. This is the inflammatory pathology, multiple sclerosis, and the principal pathology affecting the corpus callosum. Listen very closely because this all has to do with demyelinization of your neurological nervous system. Acute disseminated encephalomyelitis. Adam, do you remember? We talked about Adam in the Invasion movie. These were the words that he said, that the people that had Adam were unaffected. I think that was the movie. A rare demyelinating disease that affects the central nervous system is in a multifocal way owing to an immune system failure. What? Affects men and women equally, but more frequently children and adolescents, and appears usually after a virus infection or a sticker. Clinical manifestations varies depending on the regions affected. Seizures, headache, coma, cerebellar syndrome, and disconnection syndrome can be present. Disconnection syndrome usually surfacing 1 to 3 weeks after the sticker. This is a game changer. Now, let's keep reading about this. I haven't made any claims or anything. We're just reading a story here. It's supposed to be completely unrelated to everything else. Reading this study here. So, let's keep reading here. Now, there's something strange about this because people with epilepsy as a treatment have had their corpus callosum severed. It's called a corpus callosotomy. Callosotomy. And they sever the connection. In other words, they split the brain. This is a treatment for people with very severe epilepsy. But what happens when this happens is there's a very odd side effect. Alien hand syndrome. And what that is, they call it Dr. Strangelove syndrome, where people experience limbs acting on their own. Nobody knows who's controlling them. Alien hand syndrome is best documented in cases where a person has had the two hemispheres of their brain surgically separated. A procedure sometimes used to relieve symptoms of extreme epilepsy. Now, the corpus callosum is also integral. In other words, the thing that connects your two hemispheres of your brain is integral in reaching delta sleep. Delta sleep or slow wave sleep pattern. It's the slowest waves really measured in the brain. Here are all the different brain waves. Here you see delta at the bottom, where you're sleeping, dreaming. Here's your theta waves. That's drowsiness. Here are your alpha waves, was when you're just reflective and restful, just laying in bed. Beta waves, busy, active mind. And at the top, gamma waves. This is where you're concentrating and problem solving. That's a little snapshot into what those are. So your slow waves are your delta waves. Now, it has long been understood that delta is the deepest sleep. And as you see here, here's your corpus callosum, the center of your brain, affected by some stickers. They're saying that your brain needs this cross hemisphere communication to get you into REM sleep, delta sleep. And it says here, that if you have a corpus callosotomy, that it can affect you being able to reach those deep sleeps. Now, here's another study talking about the importance of the connection between your two brains to reach delta sleep. And it says here that delta sleep can occur, but it occurs differently. It occurs in these subcycles on the right and left part of the brain. In other words, it changes your brain. Now remember, split brains cause something else to control one of your limbs on the one side of your body. Are you starting to see a picture emerge here of where all this is headed? Let's keep talking about this and see. It says the slow waves of non-rapid eye movement sleep reflect experience-dependent plasticity and play a direct role in the restorative functions of sleep. In other words, you need REM sleep to restore your mind. Importantly, slow waves behave as traveling waves, and their propagation is assumed to occur through cortical white matter connections. In this light, the corpus callosum may represent the main responsible for cross-hemispheric slow-wave propagation. To verify this hypothesis, we performed overnight high-density EEG recordings in 5 patients who underwent total callosotomy due to drug-resistant epilepsy, and in 3 non-callosotomized neurologic patients, and in 1 sample of 24 healthy adult subjects. In all, CPs showed slow waves displayed a significantly reduced probability of cross-hemispheric propagation and a stronger inter-hemispheric asymmetry. In other words, this changes how your brain goes to sleep. Now, here's where things get creepy. Because what they're finding here is that we have parts of our brain that are always in delta sleep, even when we're awake. What? We have parts of our brain that are in delta sleep, even when we're awake. What did I do with that study? Oh, there it is. Delta rhythm in wakefulness, evidence from intracranial recordings in human beings. Let's read the abstract. A widely accepted view is that wakefulness is a state in which the entire cortical mantle is persistently activated and therefore desynchronized. Consequently, the EEG is dominant by low amplitude, high frequency fluctuations. This view is currently under revision because the 1 to 4 Hz delta rhythm is often evident during quiet wakefulness in rodents and non-human primates. Here we used intracranial EEG recordings to assess the occurrence of delta rhythm in 18 awake human beings. Recordings reveal rhythmic delta during wakefulness at 10% of all recorded sites. So in other words, 10% of your brain is in a delta state. This is crazy. While you're awake, delta rhythm could be observed in a single cortical lobe or multiple lobes. Sites with high delta could flip between high and low delta power, or could be in a persistently high delta state. Finally, these sites were rarely identified as the sites of a seizure onset. Thus, rhythmic delta can dominate the background operation and activity of some neocortical circuits in awake human beings. And finally, to tie it all in together, they have found that they can cause your brain to synchronize with external auditory stimuli. This study, called brainwave synchronization and entrainment to periodic acoustic stimuli. And this is where you got to be careful with how people are hypnotized, because this is exactly what they use. A tick-tocking a slow object moving back and forth at a rhythm. I recommend from now on, when you guys come onto my premieres and live shows, mute and do not look at the countdown to the live show, because what what it looks like I found was that introduction is at 70 beats per minute. It's a little bit faster than 1 second per beat, and that at that rate it's about 1.2 or 1.1 hertz frequency, which could put you into a delta state. We have no idea what these people are up to, because if you look at the intro, it's also got something swinging back and forth. Very bizarre. Now, let's read a little bit about this and how they can basically train your brain to react to stimuli. It says brain waves have been shown to synchronize with external stimuli with repetition rates of about 10 to 40 hertz, all the way down to the delta range. Now, what would you do if you wanted to synchronize a bunch of people's brains and put them into walking delta sleep? Split their brain so you could control one side of their body, command it to do things? How would you do it? Well, you would need some type of broadcast, some kind of sub-auditory signal. It would need to be sent out to lots of people at the same time. Now, this, of course, is just a theory, but I just showed you some pretty off-the-wall science that seems that it could be possible. And now, after I check in with you guys, we're going to check out this Fringe episode. Now, this is how the Holy Spirit works. Because one of you sent me this Fringe episode. It's been sitting in my tabs for about 2 weeks. And after I went through these studies and figured all this out, I watched the Fringe episode. And it dovetails exactly into what I just showed you. What you're about to see are all of the elements that we just discussed, and they all appear in one single episode. There's a frequency trigger. There is a neurological disorder. Remember the myelitis? There's a person shattered into pieces like Osiris. There's an injection serum. And then when you take it multiple times, it aggregates in the body. And it turns the human body into a kaboom. And you know what I'm talking about. Let's watch this trailer, this montage that I uploaded yesterday. Now let me give you the backdrop of this Fringe episode. There's a man named the Colonel, and I believe that Colonel means the sun god. The Koran, El, Apollo, Osiris. And he basically starts giving these injections to these soldiers. And they have to take them often. They have to take them every single day. They build up in their body. And then the Colonel hits this frequency, 331.6. It's a frequency. He sends it out through like a cell phone. Is all this starting to sound familiar? And it causes these people to go kaboom. Now there's more to this story, because what they're injected with is a cyanogen, which means the blue blood. Watch and listen.
Yes, Colonel. Yes, Colonel.
It's time.
So this is the first victim. He's a soldier, and the Colonel says it's time. He tells him to go and pick up this black briefcase, and as soon as he touches it, kaboom! Look on his wrist. Rewind that so you can see it, so you know I'm not making this up. Because these two marks, that look like fang marks, are on his wrist.
Yes, Colonel.
Clearly visible.
Yes, Colonel.
It's time.
Look like bite marks, don't they? Now this was 2009, you guys.
Let me help you with that.
Colonel,
Colonel.
Yeah, take that.
All right.
Now the sound is on this. Let me make sure I'm not blasting your ears out right now. That's better. Okay, let's keep going with this. So you saw that guy go kaboom.
The crystal. Organic.
He turns into crystal, but it's organic crystal, which infers some kind of sound. The crystals have the ability to transmit sound, do they not?
An ear?
They find him broken into pieces.
Well, I think Walter might have just found Officer Gillespie.
Gillespie was a decorated cop and a soldier, just getting himself back together.
So she's a detective, and she's like, he was a decorated soldier, and he was just about to put himself back together. You get it now? Humpty Dumpty, Osiris, Olaf, broken all into pieces, and kept putting himself back together with his golden carrot.
Gillespie was a decorated
14 karat gold. Are you getting it now? The 14 pieces of Osiris.
cop and a soldier, just getting himself back together. Doesn't make sense.
Peter, do you remember that jigsaw puzzle we put together when you were a kid?
Melissa was a playmate, Miss July, right? Putting together a jigsaw of a nude centerfold was Walter's idea of how to explain, what was it, human reproduction to his 10-year-old son.
500 pieces.
Yes. Yes, I do remember. So, what does any of that have to do with the bomb in Philadelphia?
Patience, son.
So there's the guy, they put him back together. Gillespie, I guess his name was. I don't know the meaning of that name, but there's probably significance to the meaning of the name of the guy that went kaboom. Didn't dig that deep. These rabbit trails can go on forever. I mean, the intricacy of whoever writes this stuff it's supernatural. It really is. Because it goes down on so many levels. So they put him back together. Now, what you're going to hear next is injections are part of this formula. In other words, they have to inject this cyanogen inside their body in order to build it up to a certain level before they can go kaboom.
So, apart from the obvious, anything out of the ordinary?
Needle marks between the toes. Some form of transformative serum, I would think. I can't say what yet.
Transformative serum. Now the detective is in the house of the guy that exploded, and she goes to, she basically is sick in the toilet, and then she looks down and she sees a loose tile, and in behind the tile are a pack of injections. Now, understand that the tile goes back to the scales. Tiles are scales. Scales of the dragon. Doesn't mean tile are bad. I'm talking about symbolism here. Okay, this is the symbolism that they use. I've seen this tile reference over and over and over again as it relates to the dragon. Okay, and we saw it in that weird art that one guy had, where it was all blue tile. Remember that? Where there were little people down there. Remember? They were tied. And I got to be careful with my words here, but you all remember the blue tile. And if you don't remember, someone in the chat can help you with the blue tile and what that represents. So she finds this inside the tiles.
Jonathan, you all right?
Notice it's blue in the background, this light blue.
Jonathan, you all right?
Mrs. Gillespie, can you tell me what these are?
Well, how do you explain this stuff? Because I'm assuming it's more than likely that this is exactly what Walter was talking about. What turned him into a bomb.
From his tissues, it appears to cause a chemical reaction on the cellular level.
Have you been taking the serum?
Yes, sir.
It solidifies the water in his cells and emitted massive energy which shattered the body. I stopped counting at 47 needle marks, counting at 47.
So obviously we've covered the number 47. And the number 47 means in the middle. Now, I'm not going to go through all of that discovery again. That's why it's important to catch all the shows you can, because you're going to, if you miss any part of it, you might be lost or confused. But we pretty much defined the number 47 meaning the middle.
Needle marks. I can't imagine it was an accident. When the serum is first introduced or injected, it's fairly harmless. But then something else occurs, a secondary reaction.
So the secondary reaction occurs after cumulative injections. Now, Dunham, the detective you saw here, starts having neurological issues. And what is one of the flashbacks she has? The two buildings. It's all in red. Now, I've long since believed that these two buildings were fangs. They represented the fangs biting back at God in heaven.
But then something else occurs, a secondary reaction.
Now, the neurological condition that she has her stuck in delta sleep. I couldn't believe this as I was decoding this. I'm like, okay, God, you wanted me to put this together with the show today and everything we just found in these studies.
We've been experiencing an acute nominal aphasia, Agent Dunham. It's common with head trauma.
Sort of medical care? No, Dan was healthy. And I don't understand. What does this have to do with the explosion?
Parts of your brain are still asleep, but once they wake up, all that memory will... Are still asleep, but once they wake up... Parts of your brain are still asleep, but once they wake up, all that memory will get flushed out.
When?
When?
Do you have any idea how something like this could happen?
Look at the time code.
The static? No, maybe radio wave interference?
It was about 20 seconds before the bomb went off.
So, why do we lose picture before the explosion?
Certain high frequencies can tweak electronic signals.
So they're talking about the signal. That becomes the trigger. And look, it says at about 20 seconds, but it actually, the countdown stops at 19. And I'll show you that right now.
So, why do we lose picture before the explosion?
Some sort of trigger causes these bonds to blast apart. What triggered it?
So you're using radio waves like Peter suggested?
Yes?
This trigger. Could it be a radio wave? There was some sort of interference on the security tapes inside the train station, most likely caused by radio waves.
Radio waves would also explain the eyewitness reports of flashing lights at the...
Now, he experiments on this watermelon. Of course, fruit are people, right? We've identified that as well. Fruit represents people, okay? And this thing actually goes kaboom too. As he's testing, he uses the 331.6 frequency. And if that means anything to anybody, please let us know in the chat. That might be like a concordance number or something like that. 331.6.
The train station before the officer exploded.
The soldiers had been exposed to a synthetic neurotoxin, and nerve agent developed under Saddam.
Cyanogen.
Cyanogen. There you heard it. Cyan means blue. Blue inside the blood. It can't be any more clear at this point.
That's what they call Tin Man.
Daily injections of serum.
Now, the secret op that they were doing was called Tin Man in the episode. Tin Man. I don't really know what that means, other than the Tin Man from The Wizard of Oz, right? What, he didn't have a heart, right? Was that it? Well, Wow. Think about what we're experiencing right now.
We treated over 200 soldiers.
They turned people into bombs.
We had discovered that after...
Now, I believe that kaboom is the code word for bleeding inside.
Built up in human tissue. It reacted in a very unexpected way.
They are here, collecting data, making observations.
So this obviously is the colonel. The colonel, right? We already talked about what that means, or what it could mean. And he gets caught in the end. They set a trap for him, and he explains who these people are, who he's dealing with. And they're basically the fallen angels that control all of humanity, all of society. The devil rules this world. The Bible is very clear. That's why he was able to offer the kingdoms of the world to Jesus, because he controlled and owned them. So you understand how that particular verse in the Bible contradicts the current interpretation in Romans that we're supposed to be in subjection to these same governments that the devil controls. No, we're not. It was misinterpreted.
Planning for war. That's what's in the briefcase. They've been planning for war. Right under our noses. They want to exterminate us. So they are studying us, our culture, and they plan to use it against us.
So I zoomed in on the code entered into the briefcase, and it has the number 11 followed by what looks like a 9, but it's actually one of their alien, alphabet or whatever. But it lines right up with Dunham's vision that she had of the two buildings, does it not?
Our technology, ours.
As well as what happened 19 years after that, which is CV-19.
Science. One science. And they plan to use it against us.
And there it is right there. Now that's not a 9, it's some kind of symbol, but it looks like a 9. And this looks like the number 11.
Whatever is in those cases is going to destroy us all.
So this guy that's looking through these pictures is one of the aliens. And look at the pictures he's looking through the binoculars. What you see here is what looks to be the beams coming out from the edge of the sun, which we all know what that is. It's called a corona. You can't even say that on YouTube anymore without having your video being reviewed and people, so this is why I have to spell things, unfortunately. But to show you that this is what they're showing here, that this is a corona of the sun, I did a fade out into a corona so you could compare them. The kernel. So there you go. Now let me pick you guys up over here, because I know that was a lot of information, but it is the truth. Now there's some weird stuff going on here. I'm going to show this to you because I don't really want to do a separate show on this. But apparently Dump was asking some bizarre questions about Gizwell. Now, this could be fake news, I'll admit. There's nothing really to confirm this. Why are they talking about this now? That he had actually considered offering amnesty. It was actually on the table. So this is no longer just speculation. We told you that that was the case. Remember, we said that? Oh, he's probably just on the verge of giving her amnesty. And he almost did. Well, according to what they're saying in that article. Now, I'll admit that there's a 50-50 chance that that could be fake news. But I guess maybe more information will come out as we go along. Now, what does that do? Well, that gives us motive. That gives us motive. If he was concerned about what she might say, you know for sure he was concerned about what Eggstain would say, right? So there would be motive for what happened to him. And we'll just wait until all this comes out, you know. I don't know. Like I said, there's 50-50 chance that these could just be things that they're trying to use to pretend like they're opposed to him and enrage the right. I fully understand that because this is a game that they play. It's back and forth, but we will see in the coming days. All right, let's go into the chat for a little bit. See what you guys are up to. That was kind of a quick show, but it was a lot of information. So I didn't want to get, you know, I wanted to go slow so you guys could understand what I was trying to show you. Now, I'll put links to all this in the pinned comment if you want to look at these scientific articles yourself. But I believe we're on to something. We're on to something. I don't know exactly, but there's too many different things and variables. Now, before we started the show, we were talking about the internet and blockchain and all this technology. Blockchain will give them the ability to block you and put you in chains. And I believe the entire purpose of the internet was to get us all dependent on commerce done through the internet, so that then they could then turn things off and turn things on. Complete and total domination control. This is why they're trying to put everyone in electric cars as well, so they can just simply turn off parts of the grid when they're ready, when they want to control people. Basically stop you in your tracks. Blockchain is a worldwide currency. Let's cut to the chase here. So, they had to have the internet. The internet will become our prison. Whoa, someone said 331 is diagnostic code for, what did that say? Oh, wow, that was huge. Chain gang. Diagnostic code for corticobasal degeneration. Wow, great find, phase polarizer. Now, about half of what I just showed you today in this show was from you guys. You guys sent me some of these things. So understand that this channel is just as much yours as it is mine. We all work together to solve the puzzles of what's going on in our reality, the truth, the base truth. We all know that these people lie to us. So why would we not want to know the truth about all this stuff? Now, some of these are theories, but a lot of this stuff has come to pass. Now, what does he say here? ICD-9 code 331.6, corticobasal degeneration, medical classification by the WHO under the range of hereditary degenerative disease of the central nervous system. That's exactly what it is, Donna. Nailed it. So I will definitely dig deeper into this, because there's probably more clues. Another rabbit trail hole that we could go down. Let's put that in here. Wow. There it is right there. So you're noticing that there were some people who had problems with shaking and seizures in the episode, of course, right? Careful what we say. And there's so much more. Okay, let's look in the chat here. Gillespie algorithm. Oh, wow. Now, why do we do these shows? It's not because we're going to, that there's anything we can do about it other than spread the information. Get people to wake up to what these people are up to. That they have the gall to actually program this stuff into our media and entertainment. People are watching this stuff thinking that they're just watching entertainment. No. Who writes a script like that with that much detail and in levels of understanding. Only the devil would be able to write something so intricate and immaculate. All right. I love each and every one of you. And let's let a couple more of these the chat go by here. Appreciate all your feedback. If there's anything else to this story that I'm missing, definitely put it in the comments so we can keep running down this rabbit trail here. What are we doing tomorrow? Oh, tomorrow's show is going to be about the pressure that Jiven is under to basically force states or induce states to mandate the sticker. It's coming. This is the talk now from the quote-unquote experts. They're saying enough is enough. If we don't get a hold of this, if he doesn't mandate this, then we're going to end up like we were before. And Jiven is pretending like he's resisting this, but I believe it's all set up. So that'll be tomorrow's show. And I'll keep trying to decode this ICD-9 code 331.6. And also, some of you had asked me to take a look at War of Tomorrow. I watched the movie. There was a lot in it, but not enough to do a decode. They mentioned the Sabbath. I guess that was the day that the aliens rested. It was on the Sabbath, which is, of course, blasphemy, right? There were some other things in there, but I decided not to do a clip decode because it's just repetition. I'm looking for, when I do these decodes, I'm really looking for the gotchas, you know, like either foreshadowing of something that hadn't happened yet or describing something that they've already done. But if it's like in its current state in the present, I don't usually decode that kind of stuff. But I did watch it and it was full of a lot of stuff. Alien invasion movie. It reminded me a lot of Independence Day is what the War of Tomorrow looked like. It looked a lot like Independence Day. It was actually a somewhat entertaining film. But of course, all full of occult programming and symbolism. So, yes, 888 plus 888 is 1776. Yes, confirmed. Entire foundation of the building of this country was based on the occult. The entire thing. I love each and every one of you. I'm going to go ahead and let you go. And we'll see you tomorrow morning. Inshallah.